Thanks so much for opening your garden gates for us. And right now we're going to be talking about compost, how to do it, and why you should. I'm joined by Suzanne Harm, who's a Public Information Officer for the City of Austin. She's with the Austin Resource Recovery Program, and the Recovery Program has a big goal for the city, which is zero waste. And when are you shooting for?
2040.
2040, zero waste,
right.
okay.
The City of Austin has an ambitious goal to reach 90% diversion from the landfill by 2040. And to get us towards that goal, we've done some studies, and we've found that almost 50% of what is in our landfill is actually organic material, which could have been composted.
Okay. It's garden gold going to the trash.
That's how I look at it, exactly.
Right.
Those leaves that are falling in October and into
Right.
November, do not bag those up, do not put them in the landfill. Let's make compost and use it as a great fertilizer for our gardens and yards.
Well, it's a great resource. It's right there in our backyards, and people should be taking advantage of it. You know, when I think of composting and getting people started, what I think of is the pushback I sometimes hear from people. It's like, oh, I don't want anything that smells, or won't it attract critters to my yard? What's your standard reply to that?
Well, I have a big yard, and I understand that you don't want raccoons coming around if you have pets especially. So the first thing is to know, if you're backyard composting, don't want to put a lot of anything in there that's going to smell bad. So if it's green, it goes. If it grows, it goes. But don't put meat, bones, any kind of dairy in there, because of course that's going to smell bad. But if you're putting your food scraps, your leaves that have fallen off the trees, any kind of grass clippings, and mixing that together, you will not have a smell problem.
Yeah, don't put animal waste in there.
Right. Oh, absolutely no animal waste, because that does have bacteria. The backyard composts do not get hot enough to kill off bacteria. So meats like poultry. You can put eggshells, but you might want to rinse those first. But nothing like that. So greens and browns, you want to have your nitrogen and your carbon.
Makes nitrogen and carbon. Those are the two primary ingredients.
Absolutely.
And you said it perfectly. Greens and browns. It's like leaves and twigs. Right?
Yeah. So your food scraps are your greens. That has your nitrogen. You want to. In Texas, there's no exact science to composting. First of all.
No.
But you want to have 1 part greens or food scraps, or maybe green grass clippings. Then you want to have 3-part brown, which is your carbon, and that can be brown leaves, it could be twigs, it could be the grass that's dried. Anything, even paper towels in your household that you would.
You can put in paper, right?
You can put in paper towels, Kleenex, things that are even dryer lint. There are a number of things that you can put in as browns.
Right.
Coffee grounds we kind of consider a green, because it's wet and nice for the compost. But
Okay. Well, compost piles can be gigantic and cheap, or they can be cool and small. You brought a cool and small example, and this, a big concern that a lot of people have is just the aesthetic of this thing. It's like, my neighbors don't want to be looking at this, or I don't want to be looking at this.
Right.
But
check with your neighborhood association, definitely. Most composters that are out on the market today are really quite small. Like this one has 2 chambers, and it can go in the corner of your yard.
Right.
You can also make a compost pile with some chicken wire and you just put it in a corner. But it depends where you live and what your neighbors can see.
Right.
But yeah, it can be very, very inexpensive.
And discreet. And this is a cool little system that's available. And people can buy systems like this, and they can actually get a rebate from the city.
Absolutely. We want to get that 50% of organic material out of the landfill. It's a valuable resource. We want people to backyard compost, so we're giving $75 to people who go out and buy a backyard compost system. They can either get a rebate when they go out and purchase one from somewhere, or even faster, they can get a coupon in the mail for $75, and they can go to one of our partner vendors. We have hardware stores, gardening shops in town, a lot of retailers that offer these compost bins, and you can take your coupon in there and get $75 off. And most of them start, the nicer systems start at about $100. This one's right around $140, but you could go all the way to the moon and get a really fancy one too. So
gold-plated compost.
Right, and there are different systems for different space limitations as well.
Well, fall's a perfect time to be talking about this, because there's so much material coming out of the trees right now. And when I think of fall leaves in Austin, I think of the oak trees. And a lot of times these are really slow to compost. Are
They
there
are.
some tricks to using those real thick leaves in a garden setting?
Yeah, I think the main trick with oak leaves is to really mulch them so that they break down into smaller pieces. When you rake up the oak leaves and just put them in there whole, it could take a year.
Right.
What I do is I have a mulching lawnmower, which really crunches them up into little pieces. When you think of those microorganisms that need to chew on these to break them down,
Right.
they don't want a big leaf. They want a little cookie size. So,
Right.
so break it down, even when you're mowing your grass, use a mulching mower and then put those clippings in the
Yeah, that's
compost.
mow over the leaves, rake them up, and then throw them in. That's simple.
Absolutely.
That's simple, and it makes a lot of sense. And a lot of people wonder about, how often should I turn it? How often should I water it? Because moisture is important.
Right, you need the 4 basic ingredients for a compost bin. And it's not hard, not an exact science, but basically you need your carbon, 3 parts brown, you need your nitrogen, 1 part green or food scraps. Then you need water because like all living organisms, we need water to survive, and you need air. And that's
Right.
where the turning or the shoveling and moving it around comes in. So the water is really tricky in Texas because if your compost bin, it doesn't matter where it is.
Yeah.
If it's in the shade, it might stay a little bit more moist than if it's in the full sun.
Right.
I like to keep mine in a little shadier area because it does get so hot here. And you want to keep that compost bin, that material, like a wrung out sponge, nice and moist so that it can continue
But
to
not
get oxygen.
dripping wet.
Not too dripping wet because that will cause some odors.
Right.
If you find that your compost pile is too wet, maybe you left the top open and it rained in there, add some browns. I always keep a few bags extra of broken down leaves in, the garage or in my shed.
Okay.
So when it gets too wet, just add some more browns in there and
Okay.
it'll fix that problem.
Well, speaking of greens, you have a nice little illustration
Yes,
here.
this is my before picture.
Of your before picture, and this is a nice little mixture of different things. Kitchen waste again.
Yeah.
The only.
This is from last night's dinner prep.
Okay, all right. And we have the finished product over here, which
Right.
is, and this is, it looks coffee groundish. I mean, it's
That
so
took
beautiful.
about a year, and again, I mulch the browns that go into my compost bin, and I have 2 compartments, one for letting it cook and one for adding the new materials. Because once
Yeah.
one side gets full, you want to have a second place
Right.
for new ingredients.
Sure.
And again, you can find out more details on exactly how to do composting. You
Yeah.
can just have one big pile and layer it. It can be really easy.
There's a lot of different ways of going about it. You also brought this tidy little kitchen compost
Isn't that
thing.
cute?
It is cute, actually, and I was thinking,
Yeah.
I would use that every single day.
This is what you get when you take our free City of Austin composting class. To get the $75 coupon, you have to be a City of Austin resident,
Right.
which means you pay the City of Austin Clean Community fee on your utility bill.
Okay.
The only other requirement is that you take a quick class. And we have 30-minute to 45 minutes, depending on how many questions. Almost every farmer's market around town, there's always going to be one near you on a
Okay.
Saturday or Sunday where we teach these classes. And when you
Perfect.
take the class, you get this bin.
Have fun, go to the farmer's market, spend 30 minutes learning about how to compost and get
Absolutely.
a coupon.
And meet fun people and ask all the questions you've ever wanted to ask about composting because we have the experts there.
Well, that is really awesome. You know, another big thing when I think about compost, a lot of people, all they do is throw their grass clippings in there. That's what they think of is going to be an appropriate response. Sometimes it's better to leave the grass clippings actually on the turf, right?
Right, you're talking about grass cycling. Mother Nature's way of recycling is composting. So all of those nutrients that are in that grass, leave them on the grass. Get a mulching mower or even a regular mower. Once they fall down in between the blades of grass and decompose,
Right.
that's adding nutrients back to the root system and it retains water for your soil. So we all want to save our precious water.
Right.
Good idea.
Absolutely. And if you want to speed the process up, if things are taking a little too long, throw in a little cottonseed meal or some kind of nitrogen source,
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely. And there are lots of amendments you can add to your compost, but I always like to keep the pieces small, add water so it's like a wrung out sponge, and then stir it up a little bit and let it sit.
All right. Well, again, Gardener's Gold is compost. Thank you so much for being on our program.
Thank you very much, Tom.
All right, Suzanne. And coming up next is our friend Daphne.